right, guys. Welcome back.
Welcome.
And I also wanted to throw a little curveball at you because we are going to rebrand and call this the Market Matters Podcast. Chris actually found that Bill Burr has a Monday morning coffee or Monday morning podcast, but it's
had it for quite a while now. For your guys' benefit, we want to make sure if you type in what our podcast is, you find it. So we figured, hey, Market Matters Podcast will keep the MM theme, and it does matter. The market does matter.
Absolutely. I think we should start with our wonderful stats.
Absolutely. So speaking of the market matters, here is the market. So we are now officially in February. We're going to look at stats for the whole month of January.
Finally, we got a full month again.
First full month of 2023. So let's just start with for sale. So again, those of you who don't know, we're looking in the Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado counties. For sale, we had 2,008 units. New listings, we had 1,149 units. And then sold, which actually decreased from December, we have 823 units. So we're below 1,000 there for sold, which is not unheard of. It's seasonality for December, January, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of pretty common in our industry. It's like November, still get a little business. December, it slows a lot. You got your main holiday, you got Christmas, and then we got New Year's, and then January, it's like people are working on themselves. You got your New Year's resolutions, and then you finally get to a point where things start to get a little bit warmer. I guarantee those numbers will go higher in February. Probably have more listings pop up towards the end of the month and more solds because, I mean, hey, you just got one in the contract and I did too.
I did. That's a good thing.
That's right. Yeah, that means our buyers are coming out. So
exactly. Also the pended, which is a good thing to talk about because versus sold, that's a different number.
Because it's like semi-absorbed, if you will.
Right, exactly. at least got into the contract phase. So pended, we had 1,163 in January. So there's a good 350-ish unit difference between the sold and pended there.
And to me, that's a good amount difference. But in terms of talking three counties, it's really pretty dang close. I mean, if we were seeing like 1,000 difference,
that would be
like sold
an eyebrow. Yeah.
For
raise.
Sure.
Yeah.
The one thing about this market is that it's slower, but it's giving a lot of our first time home buyers the opportunity to think about it, get some more savings on their closing costs, potentially brought down the rate. And also, I wanted to bring it up was talking about loan level price adjustments. With that being said, that's going to be for home ready for first time home buyers. So to put it very, very simply, what a loan level price adjustment is for a loan, it's essentially your risk. Like say for instance, you put 5% down instead of 10% down. There's traditionally going to be a price adjustment based on putting 5% down versus 10%. It's all based on risk factors. So that's why I don't really like just general published interest rates because it's very dependent upon each person. So if you could have 5% down, 681 credit score, and then you got one guy that has over a 701 with the same other details, that guy might have just a little bit better rate. So it can be just 20-point differences. So everyone's different. So that's why another reason as to why it's very important to talk with someone directly, boots on the ground, that does it every day. Nobody knows unless you get all your documentation, run credit, all that. To me, that's great. Going back on the loan level price adjustments is that they're waiving those for that first time home buyer program. And that just allows for more accessibility for them. So if they have a 625 credit score, they're still barely qualifying technically, but they're able to get into a home and they're still going to be in a great positional rate. Whereas it's actually a new thing that's coming up in May. Some loan officers are kind of iffy on what this means, but it's a little interesting. But in May, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be actually increasing the loan level price adjustments for higher qualifying borrowers. I see what they're trying to do is they're allowing for the lower income because also the home ready first time home buyer program is based on area median income. Usually you can't exceed 100%. So if you're ever curious, you can always look at your county loan limit. I believe in Placer County it is over 90,000, may have creeped over 100,000 since because it's a new year. So they may have changed that data, but you can always look it up. Just look at your area median income and talk with your loan officer and make sure your income is under that. And you might be able to qualify for one of these programs. They're going to be increasing loan level price adjustments for higher credit-worthy borrowers, which is interesting because you'd think a person that's going to have a ton of money down and also a good credit score, you would want to be rewarded because you typically are.
Right.
I'm curious. So
that is interesting.
So we don't know how much of a price adjustment they're going to do for that, but they're trying. To me, it communicates that the government, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, is trying to push it and prioritize the smaller guy the lower income, so people have
Entry
the
level.
ability to get into home ownership, because I'm guessing they see the ability as a higher credit worthy person. They can just do it easily regardless, because they have more,
Sure.
they have lower debt to income ratios. They just have more flush funds to work with.
Sure.
So that's probably where they're coming from, but nobody knows yet because it's going to be rolling out in May.
Something to keep an eye on, though. That is interesting.
It's great. I mean, I listened to another loan officer podcast, and they had one situation, one scenario where it was a first time home buyer, and it was actually around a 625 credit score, and they had him at like, I think it was like a 7 1/8, costing like 1 or 2 points. To put in perspective what points are, is say 1 point, it's like 1 point cost to your loan. Essentially what that means is take 1% of your loan amount. That's going to be an additional cost on top of your other closing cost.
That can be quite a pretty penny, especially if we're talking entry level home buyers, right? So
huge. Everything's a big deal when you're going from not being a homeowner to having a mortgage payment. It's always a big difference.
Yeah.
What happened was he saw in his pipeline that news came out from Fannie Mae stating that in their selling guidelines that they're actually going to be removing all first time home buyer loan level price adjustments. So we went back in there, looked at all of his files that he had, and found he got him in at a 6.5 rate with no points.
Wow.
So it's like coming back and saying like, hey, I'm going to save you a few $1,000s on your closing costs, and I'm also going to save you $70 a month on your payment. That's a hell of a, that's a, duh.
Yeah.
That's a great phone call to have. So it's like, it's nice to be able to help the little guy, but we'll see what happens in May. But that goes to show there are great opportunities for first time home buyers. I mean, like you're saying, like you just got someone in a contract that's a first time home buyer, right?
So yeah, we just got into contract, first time home buyer situation, not totally out of the woods yet, but it's looking like it's going to be pretty smooth.
But you have an accepted contract between seller and buyer.
Correct.
Now you're in the process.
We are pended. Yes.
Right.
Yes. We are part of that data now. But this family in particular, it's very much a feel good story where it's like these are entry level home buyers. You know, it's like they've got a large family. They're not too big on just cash up front, but they have jobs that are very sustained. They have plenty of proof that they can make the monthly payments, but it's just that upfront big cost getting in the door can be such a problem. So
one of the number one things is the down payment, and that's why we have down payment assistance programs, and that's what's great about being a first time home buyer.
And that's exactly what they utilize. So luckily they were able to do a program that was essentially 3% down, but they also used a down payment assistance program, as you mentioned. I believe it was called My Home. It was essentially able to cover that down payment for them in a loan, right? On top of that, though, you're still going to have closing costs, of course. On top of that, we negotiated essentially to get some sellers' credits back. They came back, kind of pretty much met us in the middle. So now we're getting an extra like 5,000 in seller credits on top of it. So they're coming to the closing table with only
like what, $5,000?
$5,000 is kind of what we're thinking.
A homeowner for $5,000.
So
that's pretty
a home
freaking
for
awesome.
$5,000. Yeah. So it's pretty nice.
That's
pretty
like,
sweet.
That's 2 months of rent.
Yeah.
Put that in perspective.
And they're feeling good. I can tell they're excited. I've worked with these clients beforehand. We were actually in talks in, I want to say August of last year is when I first
so
met
you've
them.
been working with them for a
Yeah.
while.
So, and that's kind of when we first started and we first started looking, we first started doing showings. In that scenario though, in that position they were in, their qualification was different. So they were pre-qualified, but it was only up to, a certain price point. I want to say around like 285, something like that.
Which is pretty limited in our area.
Pretty limited in our counties. I could tell they were close, and they also it was an FHA. So the problem is this guy, he's a super great guy. He's like a handyman. So it's like he doesn't mind having something that needs some work or needs some things. He just wants to get in, right?
More cosmetic, like you can fix that stuff. It's not that big of a deal.
Exactly. And so, the problem is, those of you who don't know, when you do an FHA program, it's really great for first-time home buyers, but something that you might run into is the program itself needs to make sure that the house has certain qualifications of repairs that need to be done.
FHA has that.
FHA approved, right. And so those can be things like dry rot. Those can be things like certain heating sources in there. There's kind of exposed wiring. Exactly.
Peeling paint, especially like, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I got to ask you this. Is the home that you're purchasing, was it built prior to 1978?
Not this one, no.
Good.
But I know why you're asking that. Lead-based paint. So yes, that is something. Anything built prior to 1978, it most likely uses lead-based paint, which could be a huge hurdle. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll have your disclosure for it. You'll know it right out the gate.
Right.
But it's technically considered a toxic. Most of the time they do that because it's had it at one point. But the 3 years I've been in the business, I'm not sure if I've had one property that's actually had lead-based paint actually still there. I've obviously had subject to's appraisals, which essentially means that when you get an appraisal, you have anything that gets highlighted that's not under the Federal Housing Administration's guidelines for what can be within the property in terms of condition, and it has to be taken care of prior to escrow. But I'm not sure if I've ever had that before.
Yeah, well, what was interesting with them, because like I was saying, we were kind of working in the previous year around August, and they were in that place where it's like, okay, they've got this number loan amount and they've got this FHA loan, and that FHA loan was really what was in a way kind of not
inhibiting.
working for us, because we're finding things in that price range, but they were fixers for sure. They had things that needed to be done. And we kind of knew just by looking at it, like if we come in there and we get inspections, it's almost a guarantee that it has dry rot or has this. You could tell almost by looking at the property, right?
Yeah.
So it came to a point where my suggestion to them, and I'm glad that the market worked out the way it is now because it's normalizing, is like, listen, let's focus on getting your credit score a little bit up, which is what they needed to do. Good. They got their credit score up a little bit up. Now they have a conventional loan, and now they're at the 300,000 mark. So now they're in the game. So it's like, that's what allows them now to essentially be into contract. And it took them some months, but it's like, that was, I think, a great move on their part, because they did what they had to do. They kind of hunkered down a little bit. I'm sure it was a little stressful. Maybe had to clock in a few more hours, but it got them to the playing field to be first time home buyers. And yeah, now it's happening, which is great.
That's great. And it sounds like we always talk about the best time to buy is when you're financially and mentally ready to buy. It sounded like they were just mentally ready to buy. It's interesting because you start to realize you have to have knowledge outside of just like the primary focus. You almost like, for me, especially with like borrowers I'm helping with their credit, stuff like that, you kind of turn into like a personal financial advisor without the license. I have all of your personal information financial. I have your credit, and I also have a very good understanding of how credit scores work. Granted, different companies report differently, and that's not out of my control. However, tried and true things, you can look it up, but there's like, the biggest thing is just like outstanding debt balances.
Sure.
And like, yeah. I mean, the fastest way to get to it is just like, people just don't realize that that minimum payment could be affecting them from going up, because they're making a payment, sure, but they're not increasing because they're not paying. They're not showing that the credit agency that they're working with, well, the credit company that they're working with, if they're seeing that you're paying the full balance off, even if it's just $250, but you're paying that full balance off on a monthly basis, they're like, he's got his finances in check and he's doing this correctly. It's not like he's just taking the easy route. They do like that. Sometimes, which here's an interesting one, super weird, is when you have a big balance and you've carried it for a long time, and if you pay it all off, your credit score don't go down a little bit first. But then it'll bounce because it's not normal activity for you.
Right.
Yeah. If you're ever in that position, don't be worried. It's only for short term, and it'll bounce right back up.
Credit's a little weird like that sometimes. I've had scenarios that I've done something like that
personally.
Yeah.
That's kind of the cool thing about it, is like, I feel like everyone has some sort of like personal like annoyance with credit. Yeah. You try and do your best, right? But
it's a beast we all have to tackle.
It's kind of cool how our jobs kind of turn into that, because we're not just one. We're here to be a resource and to help.
I think it's just such an interlinked industry, right? Because home ownership itself is just one of those things that's just food, water, shelter, right? So it's like the fact that everybody has a goal of having some type of shelter. And from a financial standpoint, I think the supreme way to do that is home ownership, right?
Absolutely.
And so everyone's striving for that in a way, learning how to do that, and all the things, all the businesses around that, and all the steps you need to get there, whether it's credit or, financial advising, how to manage your funds and having cash to close and down payments and all these things. And
personal, emotional, financial. It's popped in my brain randomly. Here's a crazy thing, because we always talk about long term with real estate, right? Obviously, you can do whatever you want with real estate, but that's like your guarantee is looking at long term.
Keep it and hold it.
Yeah, I'm like 99.999% sure about this. It's like
high.
Around 85% of retirees, their majority of their retirement stems from their home.
I believe it.
So don't quote me on this one, but 9 out of 10 people would say that buying a home is their biggest purchase of their entire lives, or at least incrementally. If you purchase multiple properties, maybe the third one that you buy, whatever the case may be. But it's just that tangible asset, and it's just something that accrues equity. And I love how it's just multi-purposeful. It can be an investment property, it can be a place to house your kids, if they're in a position where they're going to college, they're paying you rent. It's shelter, it's pride of ownership, it's
Right.
a project.
That, and I mean, I think we're just speaking from the residential standpoint here. It's like once you even get to commercial real estate, it's like that's a whole other
Commercial's
ball
cool.
game, right?
I'm
It's like
interested
now
in
we're
that.
talking businesses inside the real estate, but still thinking of the real estate itself.
All I care about is
still
the
an
rent.
asset. Yeah,
All I
right.
care about is the rent.
Right. Yeah.
All I care about is the rent.
Exactly.
But yeah, do you have aspirations to get into commercial real estate at all?
I think a little. You don't know what you don't know, so it's easy to get scared about things like that. And I'm not going to act like I'm a commercial real estate expert. I lie in residential, but I learn about it, and I'm continuing to learn about it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want to be a commercial real estate agent, but I think I definitely have interest in the investment side of it.
Yeah, the turnover is definitely a lot harder with
Yeah.
commercial. It's different. It's just like
Yeah.
it's a different marketing pool altogether. Most of the time, you're marketing like businesses. Or,
Yes. From an investment standpoint, it's kind of genius. I personally have some people that I know that are mentors of mine as far as investments go. Very savvy investors, I'd say, and they essentially dabble both in residential investment properties as well as commercial because
Sure.
they're business owners. So it's like being real estate people themselves, they understood that it's like if they're going to run a business, they would rather own the property of the business. And that itself becomes a growing asset.
It's kind of a form of house hacking too, if you can think about it. If you have enough units within a commercial property, you have your own office, but then you also have maybe 10 other tenants, maybe paying
Right.
the mortgage.
In a funny way, it's like the way you think of that almost is I was actually having this conversation with a buddy of mine. We were just talking about real estate in general, and we were talking about the same people. And so he was kind of like speculating like, oh, well, how much do you think they're worth, like this and that? And so I shot him a number, and he was like, wow. And I was like, but I don't think that's all liquid. And he was like, oh, well, what do you mean by that? And I kind of just clicked to me that it's like, oh, like it's all their assets. It's all their property. It's all this. It's all that. Your net worth is tied to your assets just as much as what's in your
Absolutely.
checking account or your
Absolutely,
saving
yeah.
account or whatever.
Your car.
Right. Just
Your
because you have to you do have to
value
jump
minus
through some
debt.
hoops if you want to turn it liquid, right? But it's like you don't have to. You can let it grow. So
Yeah, and your
Yeah.
true net worth is your actual asset, your equity minus your actual
Yeah,
debt.
right.
So yeah, you can have a lot of assets.
assuming these are paid off investments, right? Right.
But
yeah.
again, that's why you use debt as a lever. You accrue debt in order to gain asset and
Yeah.
then slowly pay it down. There's a multitude of things you can do with that. But yeah, that's why the recycling effect of real estate is a great way of going about it. Oh, I also forgot to talk about rates. Rates haven't moved too much. This past week, we actually had our good buddy Jerome Powell. We had the Fed meeting, and they hiked the rates another 0.25%, but really didn't affect the market too much because most lenders, what they do prior to a potential Fed hike is they'll usually slowly, incrementally move it up and hedge it up towards that meeting. So it's already priced in the model. So most of the time it actually goes down unless he throws out like a half or a 3/4 of a point that a lender may not be like, oh crap.
Yeah,
Type
yeah.
of deal. It's really not going to affect pricing all that much. Rates right now, I would say on average are probably around mid-6. So they haven't moved too much. They actually went up a little bit today, a good amount, a little bit. More than a little bit. It was a little off today. We keep on moving, and it's not volatile like it was. The craziest thing, I don't know if you remember this. I definitely do. There was one day, it was like a couple days. It went up by over 0.5%, and then it was just like I've never seen rates move like that. It scared the crap out of me.
0.5% in a day.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, starting in 2020, it's like you're starting with twos. And then, but within that time, it was only fluctuating maybe 1/4 to a half
Sure.
throughout like months. But like seeing 0.5% jump in like a day
Yeah, that's wild.
scared the living crap because I've never seen it before. You don't know unless you've seen it. You
Yeah.
don't feel that unless you felt it before. So I'm sure that something very similar will happen down the road, but hopefully maybe that will be a going down effect. But
Yeah.
one thing I'm pretty damn confident
0.5% in a
about.
day would be cool. Down.
Yeah. Well, the one thing to be aware of though is if once rates do go down, they're not going to drop.
Right.
That's the one thing that people need to realize because also lenders got to make sure that they're not getting their early payoffs within 6. That's a whole nother podcast, but lenders make money on your payments. And if you're flipping your refinances so quickly because rates went down, they're losing lots of money. It could be mass losses. So once they go down, everyone will be happy. But it's still a great time. There's opportunity. Investors are coming out because people are getting afraid. Well, people have been. Now people are warming up, but investors got in like last quarter. So
Yeah.
do you have anything else you want to like touch on?
Spring market is on the way, so I feel like we are
Yeah.
going to see that's another seasonality change. So we're definitely going to see things increase. I think we're very data driven and we like to be data driven, but I think just the boots on the ground perspective too
We're
is
just gonna
like,
keep saying that.
yeah, it's
true.
It's best to do both. You have to have both sides of that. You have to have the data driven, here are the numbers, here are the facts, but you also have to be dealing with people that are going through the home buying process, people in the industry that are just seeing things, boots on the ground, right? They're going to have the anecdotal kind of evidence, if you will, of what's going on as well. So it's like the combination of the two gives you the full picture, I think.
Yeah, and true correlation.
Yes.
And logistical reasoning to talking to your clients, not only just like, this is what I found, this is what I'm seeing over the screen. It's like, well, you have that, but there's also very local markets depending on where your buyers are looking at. They most tend to look at like one or two towns, maybe, right?
Yes, they generally have their eye on a town or two already that they like. Spring market's coming. I think we're coming back to normalization, and I got on off my tangent there, but I think on the more anecdotal side, it seems like buyers are definitely peeking their heads out a lot more. And I think we've been seeing that in the last couple months. They're realizing that it's normalizing. I think in a way they're accepting that we're not going to be back at 2s anytime soon. We're not going to be back at 3s anytime soon. Right? We're here at 6.
We could very well not see 2s or 3s ever again.
Yeah.
That's what people don't realize. Yeah. That we haven't seen 2s. 100% fact, we've never seen 2s. 3s, I'm actually pretty sure we have not seen that either. So that's something to think about. It's very possible we may not see it ever again. Granted, anything's possible, but that's something to think about.
It's a pill to swallow, I guess. Your mentality around that is what's going to determine what you're going to do. So I think you mentioned earlier, I wanted to go back to just these clients I'm working with now. It's like their mentality versus other clients I have worked, and it just either didn't work out for whatever reason. They were in a position where financially we had all the data in front of us, right? And they just weren't there compared to what our market was. But they understood that they could get there. They had the mindset that I can do this. I can get there. I can put in the work to raise my credit. I can do this to raise a little extra income. I can bring down my debt to get my DTI better, you know? And they did it. And here we are, right? And it took them 5 months maybe, but
that's not even that long. I mean,
in the grand scheme of being not a homeowner to a homeowner, I'll take 5 months any day. I'll take a year.
I've had multiple situations where I set them up with a really, really great person that I tend to refer for credit repair. I always do a couple week check-ins or see if I can help in any way. I just like to be active in a lot of regards outside of just when they're ready for a home loan.
Right.
But there's been multiple times where it's been a full year and nothing has changed. The girl I work with, her name's Molly, and she's like, all I can do is advise. To me, it's just some people just don't have the mentality, and that's fine. It's your life.
Yes, of course.
But at the end of the day,
we're not going to live it for you.
Don't blame me because you can't qualify. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to you.
We're just the messengers.
I am a vehicle to be able to get you the funds to be able to purchase that home, and you're the vehicle to be able to make sure that home is safe and effective and pretty and cozy.
Exactly. It's one
and safe.
Yes, and safe. Yes, I think above all safe. Yes, both investment wise and actually living in it wise.
Right.
But
absolutely. Yeah.
After that, it is ideal to be one you want to be in. You want to, that you just enjoy, you love your area, you love all that. And if we can get all those things lined up, it's like, that's it. That's what it's all about. Yeah, I would say their mentality was the opposite of trying to be a victim in that situation, where they could totally be like, well, I guess we're just not going to be a homeowners, right? I guess we're just not going to do it. I guess we're just
glad you brought that up.
We're dead in the water, right? So, but no, they decided they could do something about it, and they weren't going to give up until they did. So here they are.
I love that victim mentality. I guess that would be a great end topic, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's very apparent these days. Yeah, in the age of social media and Googling and pretty much the ability to be right all the time or self-validated all the time, you can always find someone saying that you are this and you're going to be disadvantaged because of this, this, and this. And It's okay. I never understood why people, maybe a teacher, a parent, or an uncle, or what have you, someone that is influential in your life that tells you that you are in a certain position and that is something that it's going to be a lot harder for you. You may not get the advantage that other people might. Why are you putting them in a position where they already feel like they are disadvantaged? My dad would always say every time before I went to bed, you can do anything you put your mind to. Every night.
Wow.
Nothing more,
That's
nothing
one hell of a
less.
subconscious way to put you to bed. That's awesome.
Yeah, nothing more, nothing less, because it's a very simple thing. You can do anything you put your mind to. If you're not putting all of your mind into it, then you're going to get lackluster results. I mean, have you dealt with it firsthand? Because I sure have.
Yes, I've dealt with clients before that have, I call it just the wrong side of thinking. I'm personally very much a proponent and a believer in positive thinking. I think it's a
skill to be able to obtain too.
It is. It's something you actually have to learn. You have to teach yourself to keep the thoughts up here regulated. But that starts with the idea that you can control what's up here, that you are the master of your thoughts. Why people easily fall into it is just the responsibility that comes with that thought, that I can control my thoughts, therefore I can control my feelings, therefore I control my actions, I can control my world, right? It's like I can control my life, right? The problem is when things go wrong, that means that was you too.
Yep.
It's the double-edged sword,
that's a
right?
Good point.
Yeah, it's the double-edged sword. And I think people, again, and this is where the positive thinking comes back, if you're not a positive oriented thinker, you dwell on that. You dwell on the fact that something bad happened to me and oh my gosh, I'm so angry, or oh my gosh, I'm so sad, or like, why does this happen to me? Is it because I'm this? Is it because I'm short? Is it because I'm big? Is it because I'm small? Is it because I'm right? It's like you can go down the whole list. You can make up as many factors as you want as to why. And then you get caught in that, and that becomes a negative loop. That becomes your life, is that mentality.
It's almost more comfortable to just sit and float in the middle because you can always lean one way or the other. I'm kind of thinking of it in terms of like, you got two islands, but you got someone floating in the middle with like maybe an inner tube or what have you.
Sure.
If you lean too far the other way, you fall in the water. If you lean too far in the other way, you fall in the water.
Sure, I got you. You have to keep balanced. Yeah.
Right. Because it's a lot easier if something goes wrong. Like, say, we decided to miss a podcast and we're like, I'm tired today.
Some lackluster excuse.
Yeah. That just translates over to other things. Like, you finished your application. You got my documents over yesterday. Oh, I got busy. I had a headache yesterday.
Right.
For me, I'm very extreme with my clients because I'm kind of an obsessed person, because I just want to make sure the client experience is top notch. Like we're like with the young professional side of things, we got to go above and beyond to be able to make people feel like, dang.
Yeah, no, exactly. That your exact reaction is exactly what I try to do. And I think you can come off as abrasive to certain clients or people that will become clients in a way through that, because they're not used to people that will just like, I mean, when we really want to do a good job for you and have a service, it's like we are going to pour into you. Like, it's like we're going to be contacting you. Hey, I found this thing. Check it out. What do you think of that? Oh, by the way, we need to do X, Y, Z. Da, da. It's like, it's kind of like you almost get to a point where I get to the point where I'm like, man, am I just
being
blowing?
Too much?
Yeah, am I blowing them up?
Yeah, because I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. You're a big communicator.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I want everything to be transparent on all sides at all times, because that's what's going to make the job done the best,
whether it's positive or negative.
Exactly. If something pops up, if something's about to hit the fan, we all know. We're all course correcting. We're all making sure it's taken care of, right? Or if something good news is happening, it's like it needs to be known immediately, right? So it's like anything good or bad that happens in a transaction I'm dealing with, the first thing I'm going to do is text my clients or text the other agent or text who needs to be known, or call them or email them or do whatever and keep them on it.
I think that victim mentality can also relate back to lack of accountability. Accountability in terms of our side. Things that are going wrong, or you made a mistake. So you make a mistake, but here's the thing. It takes you a good while because you don't want to tell them yet. And you want to try and fix your mistake first, which sometimes there's things where it's like some things were left unsaid if it can be figured out within a few hours or one day. Something that's not throwing off timelines. But if you're waiting a week to try and figure this out and you realize, oh shit, I can't get this figured out, I'm just kind of screwed. Then you wasted a full week. Now your clients are pissed off. Why didn't you tell me this? At the end of the day, a person that's going to do that, they may be like, well, I did my best.
Which is pretty much a lie.
Because the way I like to communicate with those things is like, if it is something that's like I'm a little concerned about it with the loan, for one, I'll try and handle it ASAP. And if I kind of have like a 24-hour rule, if it's not able to be handled, maybe even shorter than that, maybe next business day, like say something pops up at like 2 p.m. on a Monday, and it's like it's still like an underwriting situation. I don't know if maybe it's like an income thing, what have you, or overtime, whatever the case may be. And then I'm like, okay, I sent in some documentation. Let's see how it comes back around in the morning. And if it's still an issue and I need to talk to the clients, I'm telling them right away.
Yes.
At that point, I've exhausted my options. It's something that you want to be able to communicate, but you take responsibility. This was on me originally, but this is where we're at. I think we'd be able to get it worked out. Let's do this.
Right.
Because I mean, we make mistakes.
We do.
Granted, on the income side, it's very, very rare for me to do that. And I mean, the only time it really can get wiggly is self-employed. But most of the time you just average it. So I always go way less.
Yeah.
And I always kind of go like
safe.
off base, because you can always go up from there.
Yes.
Just kind of a conservative mindset on that regard. But
and that would just be better news if you went up from that number.
Right.
So,
yeah. Like I've had multiple times where people are trying to qualify for like 550,000, and I come back and I'm like, well, you guys are qualifying at 650. And then I go back later, and what I can do is I run it through a system. I'm like, okay, preliminary numbers, you're qualified at 550, no problem. And I run it through like my desktop underwriting, which maxes out everything.
Right.
They're like, oh, you can actually get up to like 650. And they're like, oh, okay. I don't really want to because my payment, but
sure. Yeah. Right.
It's cool to know. People actually, it's funny how people like to know how much they can afford. Younger people tend to go push the limits with their payment.
Yeah.
Older people tend to go a lot less than what they can qualify for.
Yeah. Yeah.
It comes down to a comfortability thing.
Yeah.
Younger people, you tend to usually like to go with more risk. Older people are like, I am tired of the risk. I'm tired of that stress. Bullshit. I'm done. Right. I want to relax.
Yeah. They're like, it's fine. It can be less. Yeah. Like I'm okay off that.
Yeah. Victim mentality. I almost want to say it's kind of going to become trendy. Like in the last few years,
it's like a psychological epidemic almost. It's one of those tricky things, not to get with my tinfoil hat on or anything, but let's go, right? Whether it's by malevolence or incompetence, people both push and subscribe to victim mentality because it keeps people in a very controlled and predictable environment.
Very docile state.
I would say that's a great word. Manageable state, predictable state.
Controllable?
Controllable, not patrollable. I was like, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. If we're getting really to that point.
That's pretty aggressive. But I meant controllable, pretty aggressive. But yeah.
Yeah, right. Controllable, yeah.
I think there's a lot of validity in that. I mean, it's
easily steered.
It's also kind of the idea of, well, a divided country is a very easily governable country. The victim mentality has been very common. I don't think it's really just a left, right. It's not a political show, but there's definitely, it tends to be more of the younger generation. Like I talk to people that are over 35 years old. I'm like, your generation's soft as shit. And I'm like, and honestly, I can't deny that, because it's absolutely true. Like,
because you're like, I'm not soft as shit, or at least I think I'm not soft as shit. But you point to other people and you're like, they are.
That's why I like going to the gym, we cold plunge. Like I try and do things that are like not. Yeah, that's why I tend to get you know me. I tend to get along with people that are like, what, 5, 10, 15 years older than I am. That's with intent, because I don't want to say I don't dislike my age group, but it's a hard place to be at this age to find someone that has the matchable type of drive and ambition and not going out all the time. It's kind of rare to find. And people that tend to maybe have families, or they're older, they have established, they've gone through that time.
Right.
It's more able to be relatable, because that's not, I got that on my system. I'm done. I'm ready to grow.
Yeah, it is an age thing. I think it's just,
because you get along with people older than you are too. I remember when you came into YPN, we have older people in there. You were very well spoken.
I've always been a person, I think that comes from my dad, to be honest. He is that
translates a lot to me too.
Yeah, right. My dad in general is just a little bit older than I'm 27. I'm going to be 28 this year, but he's a lot older than a dad would usually be, me being this age. He had me when he was, I think, in his mid 50s.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so he's
close. Know that.
Yeah, he's closer to 80 now. My father. Really? Yes, not my grandfather, my father. Yeah.
Is your grandpa still alive?
No. He unfortunately he died on my father's side. He died in World War II. When he was 18. So
holy shit.
My dad never met his dad, and I didn't meet grandpa either. So
yeah. I didn't know that.
I actually have handwritten letters between my grandpa and my grandma, like little love
No
letters they
shit.
would send each other while he was
That's
deployed.
so cool.
Oh, that's
You should frame that. That is
Oh,
some
I
cool
know. My dad
stuff.
showed it, and I mean, it's a treasure. It really is. So
That
it's
is so cool.
But that being said, like you said, I think the older generation has my dad in particular, he has just this kind of calmness to him. I can't describe it. It's like he's very tough, but not in an in your face kind of way. He's just resilient.
Way.
He's extremely resilient guy, and he's extremely well spoken, and he's a nice guy. He's a gentleman through and through, right? And so it's like you don't really see that nowadays, because it's like he's just the opposite of just being a person that's
your TikToker.
yeah, purely the opposite of that. But he, it's like he's not, stuff will happen to him, and it rolls right off his back, because he doesn't take it as, why would this happen to me? I'm a victim. I'm this, I'm that. It's kind of like
happens.
Life happens. Move on. Let's go.
You
right?
go through tough times. What gets me is the whole toxic masculinity stuff. It's like, for me, it's like now it's being claimed that toxic masculinity is someone that's actually tough. It's like, get over it, be a man, get over it, move forward. Why continue to dwell on it and push yourself farther down?
Yeah.
Granted, if you have a big thing that happens, if a parent dies or a grandparent dies, an animal dies, you have your time where you mourn, of course.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like, okay, well, I woke up and I was tired today. I don't really want to go to work. Nobody cares. Get up, have your coffee, get moving.
Yeah. Your shift's in an hour.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, you don't feel amazing every single day. Just get up, move, and you'll feel a lot better once you start.
The biggest crux that happens to a person when they adopt a lot of the woe is me mentality, like things are happening to me, is that throwing away that kind of personal responsibility, you're losing your power to create your own circumstances.
Very, very true.
Because
I couldn't agree more.
It's so much bigger than I think people realize of how damaging it is, because in a factual way, it's almost not false. That's why people think that way. It's like, if I were to get in my car and I drove down the street and I'm going through an intersection, my light's green, their light's red, but I get T-boned, is that my fault? It's like, no, not necessarily, right? But at the same time, it's like, that's life. It's just going to happen. I'm going to have to deal with that, and I'm going to have to move forward. Maybe I get injured. Maybe I get this. And it's like, by me dwelling on that and just being unhappy about the entire situation and reliving it in my head over and over and over again, that's not going to give any more forward momentum to my life. Whereas it's like, okay, you have to have so much of a power in your thoughts that it's like, I even catch myself like where a negative thing might happen to me, that I would think to myself, okay, anyone else would look at this and think like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But like, I'm so oriented. I'm so positively oriented. There we go. That sometimes I look at bad situations and I go, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe I wasn't supposed to cross that street because X, Y, and Z, or maybe, you know what I mean? Like, maybe I wanted a new car anyways.
Did you read The Power of Positive Thinking?
Not yet.
Sounds like you wrote it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But
it's
it's
awesome.
And
Better than me in
sometimes,
that, for sure.
sometimes I get that type of thinking might come off as really dumb and cheesy or stupid to some people.
I don't think so at all.
But give it a try. You might be amazed. If you want to feel good, that's what this life, I think, is about. You want to feel good.
And also what you just did there too is that the person that T-boned you, that it was their fault, and you're in a position where, say it was green and it was red and they hit you and you're positive about that whole situation, they would remember you, and I guarantee they would just be overall, you walk out and you're like, obviously this sucks, but you know what? Shit happens. Let's just get our information, and I just hope you have a very blessed day. Maybe she was crying, or he was like, you never know.
You don't know, especially when another person's involved. You don't know what they're
infectious.
thinking, what they're going through. Yeah, exactly.
It's like the best virus ever, positivity.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, too soon?
No. Yeah, virus. But I personally have been going on a journey of trying to implement much more of a stronger mentality through positivity, through gratitude, through things like that. Yeah, actually making it a conscious exercise to think that way, or to write things out like that way, or to take things in my life that hit me and I, my knee jerk is like, oh, that sucks, or I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that. But then I go, wait a minute, like the universe is this vast, crazy thing. I don't know what's going to happen next. This could be an opportunity.
My emotions, the way I act.
Exactly. Yeah. So you take it as it comes and you go, interesting. You go, crazy how this, because your life's also a story. It's like, this is an interesting chapter of the story. I wonder what's going to happen after this. You know, it's like, yeah,
maybe we're gonna meet my Cinderella.
yeah, right? Yeah. Maybe your wife T-bones you and you marry her,
or you met her
a year later.
Or you met her at the body shop.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Like, okay, all right.
That's a wild way to think about it, right? But
yeah, I think that's huge, and that's I'm
but
glad
if you're a victim, you lose that.
You do, because it was the universe is out to get me. It's like, shut up.
And then it really is, because you're creating that. Your thought power creates that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
Yeah,
but
I don't like the word manifest, but I think the message is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's something that I've been really trying to work on too, is because I can tend to be reactionary. Granted, not physically or anything like that, but I especially with my clients, if I get like some sort of like relatively negative news, I'm just very reactionary, because I try and do the best job ever, especially with underwriters. Especially with underwriters coming back to me, and I know I gave, like, me and Amanda, my processor, gave them a really, really solid file, and they're asking for something silly, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, but all I do is, hey, how's it going? I noticed there's a condition that popped up. How can we work together to get this figured out?
Yeah, and that goes so far.
If you're negative back, you're being an asshole. She's probably gonna be like, all right, fine. And maybe she conditions me for more. Granted, they shouldn't, because that's not their job.
Right.
But they'd be more inclined to maybe push your file back behind in the line, or whatever the case may be. Treat others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And that's something that I was taught, and I'm sure you were taught.
Being positive in situations that might not even call for it is, I think, super powerful, because I think it strengthens your character in other people's eyes, where it's like they'll notice when something wrong is happening, and in a way they're kind of subconsciously checking, like, how are you going to take this? How are you going to react to this? And if it's kind of like, as a professional too, it's like, imagine someone comes to you with a problem. It's like, there's two ways to react. You can go, oh my God, oh geez, like, what are we going to do? Oh my God, we have to do this. That's such BS.
Oh, yeah,
like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, that makes you feel so nervous, and like,
makes you uneasy. Then you're like, all right, then they throw it on you, and they're like, okay, if it's not absolutely dialed in perfect, then it's like everyone's stressed out.
Yeah.
Because of that one person that just cannot just control it and just.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine if your pilot comes in on the intercom and is like, we're going into some turbulence, and I'm not sure how it's gonna go, but we're gonna.
I had a glass of wine an hour ago.
Yeah, right.
I saw an Advil. I didn't take it, but it kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, and it's like, you taking that in stride is not only shows that you have a strong character, it strengthens your character in the process, because maybe really deep down you're thinking, I don't know how this is gonna turn out, or like, man, this kind of sucks. I don't know what we're going to do about this, but let's figure it out. You know, like, let's do it. There's no point in me being an asshole. That's not going to add anything to this. So
infectious.
Yeah.
And that victim mentality, I think that's why it's spread easily, just because it's so easy to adopt.
Yeah.
And it takes away that accountability, because at the end of the day, when you have 100% accountability, it's stressful. It is. But when you're able to get over those humps, and you know that you were truly accountable, honest, and yourself, and you didn't blame anyone other than, of course, there are some times that maybe it was someone's fault. Yeah. But as a person of positivity, you'd maybe look like, it's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. Let's figure it out, work it on together. Like, it's not going to help by saying, like, you effed this up. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, now we screwed this whole deal up. It's like, that's not going to help anyone. So, yeah, I think that's amazing. I think that's a great way to end the podcast.
Sure.
Too. Just,
staying positive.
Pursuit of happiness and accountability, and don't be a victim.
Don't be a victim.
It
doesn't do much for you.
No. Nobody wants to be around you either.
Unfortunately, no. You might think maybe other victims, but that's not a fun crowd.
Yes. Yeah. Leaders are not victims. Just remember that.
Absolutely. Well,
all right.
Another one in the books, guys.
The official Market Matters.
So Market Matters podcast from here on out, but we'll say this is episode 4. Check out our other 3 if you wanted to see kind of market data earlier in January.
And we go over young professionals, how it is being a young professional. We talk about New Year's resolutions.
That was episode 1, right? Because I think we just kicked off the New Year's with that. And
talking
then
about cold showers.
And now this was a really good one. Victim mentality. Yeah. All right, guys. See you next time.
Catch you on the next one.